Hi, I'd like to welcome everyone here to our webinar, Wren Data and GamEffective's webinar on gamification, better agents, better service, supercharging contact centers with gamification. Firstly, I would like to let everyone know that it's a recent partnership between ourselves and GamEffective. Wren Data have been in, sorry, I'll just go on to the next screen. Wren Data, headquartered in Limerick, operates across Ireland and has been involved in the contact center technology since its partnership with Interactive Intelligence, which has been bought over by Genesis in 2016. And since over the last couple of months, we have invested in a partnership with GamEffective to introduce gamification in not only into the contact center market, but also into various other industries also. Some of our key clients who we work with on the Genesis platform at the moment are as follows, and we hope to introduce gamification into some of these customers also. You can see there's quite a lot of household brand names that we're currently dealing with, and we hope to expand this portfolio shortly too. And some of the clients who would be direct clients of ours, some of the previous clients were BPOs, business process outsourcing, and these are some direct clients that we work with directly on the Genesis platform that we have already spoke to on gamification and are quite a ways down the road of introducing gamification into their customer contact centers. So Wren Data, what we believe is customer service is no longer nice to have in the connected world, it's essential. So that's just a brief outline of the Irish wing of this partnership. I would like to hand over now to Tal from GamEffective to take you through in more detail. Thank you.
Thanks, Niall. And I saw you have Madison Logic there as a client, and we're actually a client of theirs. So maybe we can strike some sort of rotisserie deal or something like that.
Yes, great.
So hi everyone. We've got a lot of ground here to cover today. Oh, not that much, but some what we hope are interesting topics to you. Our objectives for this session is to tell you a little bit about who we are, why we are here, and what we do. To give you a bit of an introduction to what gamification is, what it isn't, and then I will pass it on to Dean Niles, who has been working in the contact center space for over 20 years now, is an expert in this field, and she will share with you a real life example of how gamification plays out in the contact center and how all these philosophies that I'm going to talk about apply themselves to the real world. Then we're going to obviously leave you some time for questions. So just a second. Just a little bit about us before I start. GamEffective, in case you've never heard about us before, I hope you have, is a holistic platform for improving employee performance. We strongly believe that what drives the success of businesses is the success and the performance of their employees. And in order to help companies achieve that, we provide them with a holistic system full of desktop and mobile apps, widgets that can be embedded in other platform manager modules, and a host of other systems that help companies essentially engage their employees, align them, and train them so that employees know what their goals are, know what they need to do in any given moment, know how to do it because they have the knowledge to do it, and are super engaged and want to actually do it and achieve the best results. A little bit about where we came from. So we've been around since about 2012, which in the world of gamification is basically before BC. We're one of the pioneers to introduce the concept of gamification. I think probably we're maybe the first company to introduce the concept of using gamification for employees. A lot of companies have been doing that for customers. We're one of the first to do it for motivating your own workforce to do what's right. We've won several awards for our platform, most notably an award from Gartner and recently an award from G2 Crowd. And the cool thing about our platform is it's more than just a platform. We've built in this whole methodology around it, an engagement methodology that guides users' behavior and learning so that they can, maximize their performance. Everything that we've built with scale in mind. So it's easy to launch, it's fast, and it's structured around best practices. But because we know that every business is different, everything is also customizable, and we've built it so you can set it to fit your business model and your needs. It's all designed to enhance the management and employee experience. And when you buy from our platform, you don't just buy a platform, you buy our dedicated customer success specialists and experience that will help you and guide you with best practices from our clients. And we'll talk a little bit about who these are in a second. And another pillar of what we do is that to provide a whole product and a good service, we try to partner with the best possible partners. So we are partnered with SAP, with Salesforce, and most recently with Wren Data, who are doing amazing things in the Irish market. Our clients are mainly enterprise companies, so Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 companies from a very wide variety of industries, from financial services to business process outsourcing and technology and pharma and agri. One of our sweet spots is contact centers, where we've really been able to produce a lot of value for our clients in helping them connect, get ready and connect the new age of employees, or the modern workforce. And when I'm talking about the modern workforce, and this is basically a kind of like one of the main topics of this presentation, what we're all about. So this was about like us, who we are now, why we're here. I think unless you've been living under a rock for the past 10 or 20 years, you've probably noticed that the world is going through some sort of transformation. People are still people, but the way we interact with each other, the way we learn, the way we make money, and the way we communicate, and pretty much everything around how we interact with each other has changed. And it doesn't take, you don't need to be a scientist to see these things. You look in the internet, you look in your immediate environment, and you can see this. The president of the US, he doesn't communicate through channels and through spokespersons. He communicates directly to his constituency through Twitter and through other channels. When you want to know something, you don't, take a whole course or contact an expert. You just Google it. And before you go on your Italian trip to Italy, you quickly have a few snippets of learning about Italian and know, and know what you need to know. If you have one of these, if you look at the top of the screen, you have the smartwatch. We have all these tools that measure us in our day-to-day life and tell us when we need to take a step, when we need to do something, and give us instant feedback on how to perform and what our goals are at any given moment. And through Twitter, through Facebook, through all of these systems, we always get feedback, and we know what people want from us, what they think about us, and we kind of expect that. Now, why am I giving you this whole spiel about the world changing? Is because it's not just the world, around us that's changing, because people pretty much, or at least the younger people that come into the workforce today, they've grown to expect all of these features in their work life and not just in their day-to-day lives. Even in work, when we're coming into work, we expect to get the same level of real-time feedback. We expect to still be recognized for our achievements and for what we do. We expect to be part of this social, connected community. And when we are trying to learn something, or people at work are trying to teach us something, we expect to be acknowledged for our short attention span. We expect to have a potential for growth and for learning, and we want to know that what we're doing has some sort of meaning that's bigger than ourselves and provides for our sense of purpose. And why is this important? One second. So why is this important? Delivering on employee expectations is not about making people happy necessarily. It creates tangible value for companies. And if companies don't do this, companies don't adapt and provide this level of experience to their employees, other companies will, and competition is competition. So research by various organizations from Deloitte to Gartner to Gallup have shown that companies that invest in standing up to their employee expectations and in engaging their employees retain employees 4 times longer. Their employees are 25% or more, sometimes more productive. Their revenue growth rate is greater by 2.3x or more sometimes. And customer satisfaction is much, much higher. When you engage your employees, when you excite your employees, they excite your clients. And if you do right by your employees, they will do right by your clients. So how do you deliver on these expectations that we just talked about earlier? How do you deliver on, on that super fast feedback? How do you deliver on that need for recognition and that sense for social connection? And on the flip side, how do you train in a way that acknowledges people's short attention spans, that is instantly useful and supports growth and development? And there's a lot of mechanisms that we offer at GamEffective in order to do this. But one of the main ones, and one that we believe is kind of not a silver bullet, but one of the best way to do it is through gamification. And let's dive deeper into what that means. What is gamification? And we'll follow soon with that real life example. So first thing first about gamification is it's not a new thing. Gamification is everywhere. A lot of times when I'm having these presentations, we do like a survey and ask people, have you participated in some sort of gamified environment? And people will say no. And then I say, like, have you ever, had a frequent flyer card? And then people will say yes. And that's a great example of a gamification, because you accumulate points and you get status badges, and that gives you access to better. If you've ever had like a Starbucks or a Costa Coffee loyalty card, that's gamification. If you've ever had a test at school, and you got a grade, and at the end of the semester you compared your grade with other students, that's kind of a form of gamification. Spelling bees are a common form of gamification, and like the most ubiquitous form of gamification that probably everybody knows since the days of yours sales leaderboards. So sales has always like been an early adopter of innovation, and they've been doing gamification for ages and ages and ages. So what does gamification mean? So Carl Kapp, a good friend of mine and somebody that we usually have for presentations for us, he's a gamification guru and wrote a lot of books on this topic, describes gamification as using game-based mechanics, aesthetics, and game thinking to engage people, motivate action, and promote learning and solve problems. So first thing first, and you can glean that out of this definition, is what gamification is not. Gamification is real-time feedback. There's a second, something's wrong here. Okay, yeah. So gamification is not playing a video game at work. And I want to crush some pre-thinking or stigmas. Gamification is not about fun. It's not about making things fun at work. It's not about games. Fun can be a byproduct, but the goal is not fun. The goal is getting people to be more productive, to solve problems, to take action. And the mechanisms that are used in gamification are, real-time feedback, recognition and reward, context and social connectedness, and a path to mastery. What do I mean by that? So if we look at instant feedback in games, you instantly get or lose points for your actions. Your life bar either goes up or goes down. You don't need to think too much about whether a certain behavior or a certain action you took is right. You know it because the game tells you that right away. In games, recognition and rewards in games, you're rewarded for doing the right thing through badges, through level progression. The game intrinsically shows you recognition, and you don't and it doesn't pay you to do the right thing, because you get your dividends through the points and the badges and all of these things. So you get recognition and rewards. Another mechanism is social context. You know, when you're playing games, you usually play games with others. Some games you don't, but mostly with others. And even if it's like a first-person shooter, there's always like these social elements, like who has the highest score or who did what. And, you know, there's always all these conversations in the social feed for the game and trash talking and stuff like that. So, you know, you can ask people to help you pass in all these social boards. You can ask people how to pass level 5, or people will get like, oh, Joe finished that impossible mission. What a rock star. So people socialize with each other through games, and they gain a sense of community and purpose. And this is like a great part of games. And the last is clear path to mastery. So in games, goals are very clear. Levels are very clear. You know what you need to do to get to the next level. You know what you need to do to pass the mission. And this is what we're talking about when we're talking about game elements and when we're about game mechanics. So when we're talking about gamification at work, we're talking about taking game mechanics like points, life bars, all of these things, and applying them to situations at work where, you know, we need help. So, for example, to motivate the desired behaviors, we can use points, life bars, instant feedback. To drive employee engagement and get people to want to do work, we can intrinsically reward them with badges, with physical rewards, not necessarily with virtual rewards, or through recognition on social feeds, thumbs up, kudos, all of these things. If we want to sustain motivation over long cycles, like if you have long sales cycles in your inside sales team, narratives, levels, leagues are great game tools that help you do that. If you want to quickly shift employee focus, let's say, you know, you have a Christmas drive and you know that you need people to be more energized in Christmas and more focused on product returns or something like that, you can quickly change focus through challenges and through surprise missions, just like in games. If you want to provide guidance, you can do training missions or do a gamification mechanism of unlocking areas on a map. And all of these things kind of lend themselves to getting employees to do what you want through gamification. So in summary, why gamification is so great for employees is because gamification is a powerful tool that engages employees at an emotional level to change behaviors, develop skills, encourage sales, and to drive outcomes and innovation, all through a fun and interactive way using practical challenges. So that's the theory, that's the general. And now instead of talking blah, blah about how, what is done, I'm gonna introduce you guys to Dee Nilis, who, just like I mentioned earlier, is a veteran of the contact center industry. She has spent the last 20 years working with huge contact centers worldwide on strategy, innovation, and on getting employees to perform. Just until recently, she was a business program manager at Microsoft Consumer Support Services. And before she was helping us with these presentations, she was a client of ours. So Dee, without further ado, I'm gonna pass you presentation rights. 1 second. Here you go. Dee?
Yes.
Ah, hello.
Is it showing the right screen?
Nah, it's showing me a picture of your dog, who is very cute.
All right, it wouldn't let me select screens, but that's all right. We got this.
Yeah, I keep saying that the worst thing about working at a technology company, we're seeing both this and the next slide. So I think you need to.
Yeah, let me try it this way. It won't let me swap the screen. There we go.
No. Yeah, here we go. All right.
All right. Apologize for that. So thanks, Tal, for handing this over to me. He's already kind of explained a little bit about my background. I'll jump in and share a little bit more. So I did spend, 18 years at Microsoft. I was in their consumer support services organization. And I took many roles, from managing all the contact centers that we outsourced to, so the BPOs, we call them our delivery partners. And then, I took over a team and created a team that was really about what we called agent enablement. So agent enablement was very focused on enabling our agents, whether it was to new products, new technologies, new tools, but more importantly, it was also about engaging them to help them do better, resolve more issues, help with our customer satisfaction. And through that, we created a key initiative, and it was like a 5-year plan. It was really focused, we call it Making Agents Great. And we had different work streams within that was really focused on, let's improve the effort of our agents, let's drive better content and knowledge. And one of them was really about rewards and recognition. And so we started really looking into ways, how do we engage our employees? How do we get them, where they're willing to learn more? And so what we realized is we had to really look back to figure out what's going on with our agents. And so one of the things that really came out of this is 2 things. One, we were investing in technologies like crazy, speech analytics, better IVRs, better self-help, chat bots. So we were doing all this around technology, and what we realized, we were actually making it more difficult for our agents. And so when I say that, we were automating all the easy issues. So what they were handling as normal frontline issues, 2 years ago, we considered escalations. Plus, we removed so much autonomy from their day-to-day work because everything they do is measured. Every click of the mouse, every keystroke, everything they say with speech analytics, everything was managed. And so there was less autonomy, there was less choice associated to their day-to-day work, which both of those drove less emotional engagement. They were going through the motions of completing a customer interaction. They were going through the motions to meet KPIs or their targets, but they were only doing enough to meet it. There was nothing incentivizing or exciting them to want to go above and beyond. And when we started really talking to these agents, because it's such a transactional position, there was no meaning to them. There was no true connection to the brand, to the companies. And so with all of that, it made it more difficult for the agents, as well as the environment around them. There's more channels of support now, right? You got self-help, you got social, chat, email, phone, and there's so much more for self-help options. Like I said, by the time a customer got to an agent, they've already spent a good amount of time researching and looking for solutions on the internet. So we're instantly jumping into customer recovery at the beginning of the call, because it's not like the first time they've, addressed this issue. It's probably the 3rd or the 4th. And so the knowledge required to resolve these more difficult issues really made it more difficult. Most contact centers, including Microsoft, we had amazing incentives, right? Award the top 10%. For us, we had thousands of agents. So even if I had 1,000 agents and I'm awarding the top 10%, what am I doing for the other 900? That 900 is probably handling 85% of my customers. What can we do to engage them and try to find a way to recognize everyone? I could be number 600 on that performance list. I can be exceeding my KPIs. I can be a solid performer, but I'm still 400 away from being top performer. So why even try harder? And so when we started doing this and really looking at ways to engage our employees, we had to look for creative solutions. And one of our delivery partners that we worked with brought up gamification. So we started researching gamification, and this is when our relationship with GamEffective began. Because what we wanted to do is find a way to engage our employees. And so there wasn't a lot about gamification at the time. It was a new journey for us, but we learned a lot. So we relate this back to like the fitness tracker. I'm sure some of you on this call use a fitness tracker. It changes our behaviors. You know, if you have a 10,000 step goal during the day and you're at 9,000, you got an hour before you typically go to bed, you're going to find a way to get that 1,000 steps in. So utilizing the platform does the same thing naturally to the end users. So even with Microsoft, when we launched this, we increased productivity by 12%. The average agent would take 2 extra calls per day, which was awesome, because what that did is we found one of the behaviors that we wanted to address with our agents was the call avoidance. When it comes down towards the end of their shift, they were looking for multiple reasons to avoid that next call. So it was call avoidance. They didn't want it to run over, so they didn't have to stick around longer. They had case notes. They would enter aux codes on their phone systems, anything to avoid that next call. The mindset changed with the platform. Instead of saying, how do I avoid that next call? How do I take 2 or 3 more calls in the next 30 minutes so I can get that many more points, so I can move that next level, so I can beat Sam who sits next to me? It naturally drove an increase in overall engagement of the employees wanting to do more. So using gamification, once we got it launched and got moving, we really started understanding what it does, right? It creates meaningful players at the individual level. Yes, you can have individual contests, you can have, team contests, you can do all sorts of different things to engage them in different ways. If you're that middle to bottom performer, you want to actually improve against yourself, right? I'm going to do better than I did last week. So they might even bet on themselves. I'm going to bet X amount of points, and I'm going to improve by 10%. But more importantly, they wanted to improve to help their team succeed too. So it drove individual goals and accomplishments as well as team. And what it does is it created a journey for it, that engages employees at a whole new level. It connects them better to the brand, the team, and the day-to-day functions that they do. As Tal mentioned before, it's not a game, but it adds game mechanics to the day-to-day work that employees do. And when we do that, it recognizes everyone for each step of the way. It could be content review, it could be, a quiz, it could be a simulation, but it recognizes and rewards through points and badges, etc., individuals for their own accomplishments. So they want to excel. They want to build that mastery at something that matters and gives them a sense of control. Some of the biggest comments that we've gotten from our end users was the comment is, wow, it's something I have control over. It's something I own. It's a little bit different than, the scripted calls, the clicks of the mouse, everything being measured. And more importantly, what we've learned, and Tal expressed this before, that people need real-time and continuous feedback. We've all had it. You hear, hey, great job. You're going to do a good job the next time. As long as that recognition is there. So that positive feedback actually creates a purpose, and it creates an environment where you feel like you're part of something bigger than yourself. So when we launched this at Microsoft, there was a lot of aha moments. But one of the biggest things is how we actually increase the employee lifetime value. Even though we outsourced, we were in contact centers, retention is still essential because knowledge is power. The more knowledge they have, the more effective they are resolving issues. And the more effective they are, they begin and gain efficiencies. So, we work really hard to make sure that employees and our clients, when we're launching the platform with them, we need them to be effective before they're efficient. If they're not resolving the situation or handling the contacts correctly, you can put any average handle time target on there. They're going to meet it. But are they doing it effectively? Are they doing it right for the customer versus at the expense of the customer? And so when we launched this, we had big holiday ramps and stuff. So we needed to find a way to get these thousands of agents that we would hire temporarily into the system to be more proficient faster, quicker, better, faster type phrase. So we utilize the platform through micro-learning, because today when you look at a lot of the learning audience, Google and YouTube are their biggest trainers. And so doing the long classroom environment, we learned in the millennial workforce, in my generation, and I won't say my age, but I have, all my kids are millennials, so I'll say it that way. The long books really worked and it really helped for us to learn. But when you went through training, and if I've got an adult education training certificate, but 30% of consumption actually happened in the classroom with my generation. With millennials, it's in the lower 20% because their attention span just isn't there as much. And so when we found out doing it through micro learning, repetitive to instill the information, repeating the same information, we are able to get these individuals more proficient and able to handle calls effectively and efficiently 30% faster than the traditional way. And I already mentioned the increase in productivity because the nature of the game, it's not so much of forcing them to pummel through calls. What it does is during the times they would typically do call avoidance, they would take more calls to progress faster. They were not procrastinating as much in the workplace. And the knowledge and compliance, and I'll give you a couple examples of how we did that. But what we found out is the traditional communication of new information just wasn't working. And when we sent it out, only 23% were aware of the information. When we did it through the platform, 89% of the people became aware of it because they were rewarded and recognized for each step of the way. And because they felt like they were part of something bigger than themselves, it gave us a 10% reduction in attrition. So you miss a day of work, you miss a day of points. You miss a day of points, you're not going to move levels as quick as your peers, or you're going to hold your team back. And so we saw a natural reduction in absenteeism. And because the platform can create a journey, a career journey, or even just a learning journey, they felt, more connected to the company. They understood their purpose there. And so that drove great results. I have a few slides here with just a little bit of example of the platform, right? And so employee engagement in action is kind of what the section is called, but seeing your metrics real time, not pulled into scorecards once a week, or you can download it once a day or look at multiple spreadsheets. It's right there front and center. It's kind of like what we call in-your-face content, in-your-face information. The more they're aware of it, the more likely they're going to react. If you're one of the top performers, you're going to work hard to sustain that. If you're giving out awards to your top performers, don't stop. Keep doing that. That's how you retain the best of the best of the best. It's talent retention. But utilizing this and really focusing on this, they can earn points just based on their performance component. And they can always measure against how they did last week, last month, last quarter. So it allows them to see it, as well as it provides that learning journey. In the learning part, when we do this, there's a couple kind of screenshots in here, but what we do is we adopt the desires, or we tap into that passion where they want to learn. And so when we mention the achievements and you can move through the levels, what we found, like in this example, there's on the bottom right, there's 11 levels. As soon as employees started hitting about level 4, attrition almost disappeared. It dropped all the way down to 4%, and we were sitting at well over 80% annualized. And so when they start doing that, they see that journey, they see that path. And when our clients enable this to drive for promotions, like you can't apply for a tier 2 or escalation until you're level 7. If you want to be a team lead, you got to be at level 8. It makes people feel like everyone has an opportunity for that movement within the company. As we know, in contact centers, it's kind of a flat organization in the aspect you got a lot of agents, and a lot of times they feel promotions occur based on who has the loudest voice, who knows who. And when you utilize the platform where, okay, if you're level 5, everyone can apply, and then we filter through that, etc. It engages them. And then obviously there's different things you can do. One of the best examples we did here through notifications at Microsoft is we found through speech analytics that customer sentiment, they were getting basically upset when we were empathizing with the customer. I apologize for the inconvenience. So when we did that and we looked, it's like, wow, that sounds scripted. It's not genuine. So utilizing that data, we sent out a notification and an activity to the employees that says, no longer say, I apologize for the inconvenience. It's not genuine. It's not you. It sounds fake. It sounds like you're reading. Just say, oh my, let's look at that. Oh my, let's fix that. We instantly saw a 17% reduction in dissatisfied customer within 24 hours. It's as close as you can get to making a difference, starting with the very next call, because it was short, it was immediate to the point, and it was able to drive them to learn it better because it wasn't going into the classroom and spending an hour around empathy. It was a 30-second activity in the platform that drove change immediately. So we've got the virtual store. You can trade your points, your gold coins in. You know, there's a lot that you can do with the platform that rewards and recognizes them so they want to do better on a regular basis. The game changer and the piece that I love the most is what we call our manager module. And we're not going to get into all the details here, but there's a couple screenshots. This enables the managers to always be seeing what their employees are. So when they sit down for their weekly one-on-ones, you know, it's more fruitful. It's targeted not just for performance, it shows trend rates. You know, the conversation with an employee, if the trend rate is going down, is way different than if the trend rate is going up. So we want to do that differently to engage them in a heartful conversation based off of the trends that they're working. And it's real time. And the managers are able to not have to build scorecards and pull all this data before those one-on-ones. It enables them at a whole new level. We also have things in the platform that allows adaptive learning. So based on performance, it can automatically prompt additional learning, even if it's feedback. Hey, you're on your 3rd week of improvements. Great job. You know, you can do some of those things that give that real-time feedback. Now, I've been at GamEffective for about 1.5 years now, full-time. And prior to that, obviously, I was a client, and then I was consulting with them and helping as a board of directors. But now as a full-time employee, my focus is really around contact centers. I want to make sure that not only do they get their return on investment, they also get the results that they want. And so since I've been working with them and really focusing on a lot of the contact centers, here's an example of the average return on investment that our employees have gotten. Our clients have gotten. Anywhere from driving customer satisfaction improvements, even through quality monitoring, driving sales, because today sales contact centers are so difficult with so many buying options, things like, you know, Amazon. Customer agents here no more often than yes. They have to be better at, you know, value propositioning and at helping with the attach rates. And so it's become more difficult, but with the platform, you can enable, empower, and excite them to do better. So we've seen great improvements in the revenue and the sales side of it, the average handle time. So again, we want to be effective before efficient. So we really focus on what's that resolution rate, and how are they doing with compliancy? Are they showing up for work every day? Are they continuously learning and getting the knowledge? Because knowledge is power. Once we do that, then we look for ways to optimize. So we do see a lot of improvement in average handle time. We see a lot of improvement in productivity, but it really drives a new level of learning and engagement that ties the agents back to the company, to the brand, where they want to do better for themselves, want to do better by their management, and want to do better by their customers. So that was a lot of information.
I'm always sad in these interactions that we have with in these sessions that we can't have like a voice conversation with the people listening. But for the attendees, you can see probably at the top of your screen, I don't know if it's called questions or or comment, but you can see like this little widget that has questions and comments in it. And I think at this point, it would be great if you could go in, and if you have any questions, if you have anything you want to ask us, now is a great time. And I can't promise we'll be able to answer everybody, but please, we're looking forward. Till then, one thing that you mentioned about the manager module and the way that we work with manager, I really like the feedback that I got from one of our customers, I think it was last month, that this has radically changed the way managers and employees interact with each other. So if before managers would call their employees in to their weekly sessions or something like that, or quarterly sessions for feedback and say, you need to improve or something something vague like this, they say, okay, let me pull up my screen and show and see what you need help with, and the employee will pull up their screen and say, okay, I'm having difficulty with A, B, C, and then at that moment the manager can coach them on it and assign like training and activities to help them specifically with that, to improve with that. So that's a very cool, I think, observation.
Yeah, the manager module has been seen with a lot of our clients. It's just a game changer in how they drive that front line.
Yeah. It's a trickle down managing. Now you're on. You're looking at the questions. Do you have anything that came in?
Yeah, there's one question here. How quick to deployment, if somebody was looking at gamification from start to finish, how quick would it be up and running in a call center or customer service environment?
You're closer to these things than I am, so.
No, it's a good question. What's really nice is the way we've designed our platform, right? It's really designed around trying to make it ease of effort for our clients. Typically, we have a 5-week journey. Having the right resources available within 5 weeks, we can easily have that platform up and running. It doesn't take us long to customize it and getting it up. It's really engaging. There's some key components to really consider. So one, it's getting the data, right? Whether we do a full integration, there's a lot of tools out there that we can do a full integration. We can do it through APIs, or we can do it through data uploads. That's usually one piece that takes a little bit of time, just making sure that's all there. And then, when we do this through the 5-week, we do a whole discovery phase. What's going on with your business? What's the biggest impact? Because a lot of times there's cause and effect. And then we review and we do workshops through that 5-week time. What are the behaviors we want to change? What's the contest? What's the right activities? So 5 weeks is the main time period to really consider from the contract to deployment to your end users.
One of the cool things, by the way, you mentioned integrations, is because we've been working in the enterprise space for quite a while now, is we've developed over time a lot of connectors built in already to most enterprise applications. So you don't even need to get a lot of IT involvement, or it doesn't need to be a custom dev project for every implementation. Most of the times it's just kind of plug and play. The idea is just mapping what we need to integrate to, what data sources do we have to give us a full picture of the employee, and be able to trigger and automate processes, so you don't have to have a lot of admin work.
Yeah. And just to add on that, people are like, well, I can't rewrite all my training in 5 weeks. It's not, all the companies we work with, there's such a repository of content out there. It's not realistic for us to ask you to rewrite all of it. And so those connectors that we've talked about, or the integrations that we do, with some big LMS systems, what we do is we basically put it on steroids. We enhance it. We can link to it. We can have the full integration, so you're not rewriting it, and they can go, between the platforms. So one of the things to keep in mind, it's not a rewrite of your content. It's finding ways to engage the employees where they want to go and learn it. And obviously they're rewarded and recognized for it. And so just something to keep in mind, because so many people feel we have to rewrite it, and we don't. We just enhance it.
There's just one other question has come in. Some of my employees at the moment are a cross-generation mix of millennials, Generation X, Generation Y. I also have a number of mature employees who might have been on career breaks and coming back to work a little bit older than the millennials. And how do they find and cope with the gamification process?
I always love that question because when we launched it at Microsoft, we were really concerned because we had exactly the same thing. It's not just one generation. We think of like the millennials, you know, they're the gamers, this fits them, but what about, you know, the baby boomers or Generation X? And what people forget, especially my generation, man, we were the boomers of Tetris and Solitaire. We've been doing games for years, but we have adapted to the technology. So if you look at the older age, I want to be, you know, politically correct here. Think of our cell phones, right? We started with the analog phones and now it's a walking computer. We've adapted to technologies. We've adapted to gamification and things like that. And so we play just as well with the platform. It doesn't turn both ways though, because we've grown up with it. We've changed as technology has changed, you know, so we adapt. But the younger audience, they're not going to, you know, give them a rotary phone and see what happens. They don't adapt to the old days as much. So it applies to all the generations because it connects with them. And cultures. The content and how you do the content might be different. So like if you're in the Asia Pacific versus the US or LATAM or, you know, up in Europe, we found no cultural difference in how they utilize the platform, but we've seen some culture difference in what they want to see coming out of it. Like when you work with some countries, they want more business type. Other countries, they just want a brain break once a week, something a little bit different in the platform. And so we've done a lot around the globe, so we would help guide that to make sure that you have that set up right for your audience.
I've actually read this research recently that about gamification specifically that says that the older generation actually get impacted with this more because everybody likes feedback. Everybody likes getting getting instant feedback and getting recognized for good work. And the older generations don't expect that as much as the younger generations. So for them, this is like amazing. This is a step up from anything they've ever encountered in their life, even outside the office. And they get much more, you know, get much more impact, much more engagement out of having these types of platforms.
Okay, there's no more questions from my side.
All right. Okay, so if you guys have any more questions, you know, feel free to either shoot them to us at info@gameeffective.com or now where can they reach you guys?
Yeah, they can reach me at niall@wrendata.com.
Awesome.
Very simple. Yeah, very simple. Yeah.
Or through your website, I guess.
Yes, exactly. Wrendata.com. Yeah, no problem.